about basketball.
Oh, you wasn't.
No.
Why not?
Just the Good Friday exhausted me.
Oh, I heard about your Good Friday, man. What did
Yeah.
you do? Didn't you guys like walk 200 miles or something?
Not 200, 13 and a half. We One of the guys leading it is a math teacher, and he told us, it's approximately about 26,000 steps we did.
Wow, are you serious? Now, what was the purpose of all that, man? Walking with a cross. Did the
Well,
cross have a wheel on it?
yes, the
Oh,
cross had a
okay.
wheel. We made it a little bit easier for ourselves because we're
So when
American.
Jesus did it, he didn't have a wheel.
No, he didn't have a wheel.
Okay. What's the purpose of doing it if you're not doing it like Jesus did it?
Because no matter what we do, it's not going to be anything remotely close to what Jesus does. It's the
True that. True that.
the the purpose of it is to get a small taste of what he went through. Not We don't want to experience everything because no one likes to get crucified. Believe it or not.
Nobody, huh?
No, nobody.
Oh, okay. No, I know some black people that's getting crucified. Y'all know me. So now, we this week, man, we're gonna get into this psychological stuff. Now, you're a psychology major, right?
Yes, yes. I'm majoring in psychology.
Right. So you're a psychology major and a serious Christian. Now, how does that work? What's that combination like?
Well, the combination of it itself is it works out for me. I really do enjoy putting them together. Um, I guess there's two ways of going at it. You can be either a Christian who happens to know psychology and use that in the Christian field, or you can be a psychologist who uses your Christianity in your field. So,
Oh, okay. So now, I've been, looking at it and thinking, why would people who are Christians now do a lot of Christians do you know any Christians that's in therapy?
yeah, I'm actually with my fiance. We're doing a devotional, and he has a
Your
PhD.
fiance a man?
No, no, no.
Oh, okay.
We are doing a devotional together, and the author of it is him and his wife, and he has a PhD in psychology. So he's actually a marriage therapist and practiced it for years, and he developed this book, and it's actually a very popular devotional.
Well, oh, okay. So he's a preacher and he has a PhD.
He's actually not a preacher. He's a Christian, and
Hmm.
he uses a lot. He's a Christian psychologist.
Psychologist.
Uh huh.
So now, what about? Do you know any Christians who are in therapy getting help for their personal problems right now?
Um, I usually don't get into
Have you heard about that in any sense?
um Christians going into therapy.
No, just some Christians going through having personal issues like everybody else in this world, being depressed. Because what I see in the black community, this is what happens sometimes. A lot of times, many of us need therapy, but
Mm-hmm.
we won't go because a lot of people have a great connection with the Lord, and so they'll say, "Well, that's my therapist," or "Why should I go to church? I don't need therapy. I can go to church. I can pray to God." But I've always said that's two different things in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your faith and working on your personal experience. But a lot of people use Christian and going to church as a form of therapy. That's what I'm thinking. What do you think of that?
I think they should be going. They should be put together. I don't think Christianity should be put onto should be by itself. It's just like, yes, I have a relationship with God, and me personally, yes, I do pray to Him, and yes, I do have a relationship with Jesus and with God. But at the same time, I go to church for the fellowship. It's like that's another way of you know it's a different type. It has someone physically there when you go to therapy because that person is actually there and they're supposed to and they get paid to sit there and work with you. So it's nice to have a physical body and a physical presence there.
So now, if you started going through some personal problems, like you're engaged to get married, and so let's say you and your fiance down the road, after you've been married, 3 or 4 years, start having some problems within your marriage. Now, what would be you guys' first choice? To go to the pastor to ask for help, counseling, or go to a marriage counselor, to a therapist who have a real office? What would be the first choice?
Um, I think for me, it would kind of have to. I'm not even saying this as a joke, but it would kind of depend on the day of the week where we both opened up and said, we need help. Because sometimes it'll take. It's hard to admit when you have, especially with marriage. It's hard to admit, that I need help from someone not included in this issue. It's hard for a person to find outside help. So it would depend on the day that the two of us sat there and said, we both acknowledge that we need help. Who do we go to? And if, let's say, that day was a Sunday, we would definitely go to our pastor first because we're probably at church already there. But if it's on a Wednesday or when the office is closed and we can't get a hold of anybody at church, we're probably going to call a therapist first. So, there's some outside factors. But in general, I think I personally would go to a pastor first because I think prayer from the get-go from someone else would be a big factor. And then it wouldn't even be that, I'm going to go to my pastor and then tomorrow I'll do that. I might do them not the same day. I'll call up my pastor and say, hey, can you pray for me and my wife? We're going through some issues. And of course he'd say, yes, of course, I'll pray for you guys. And then the next person we'll call would be the therapist to schedule an appointment.
Okay, so secular therapy interventions is not looked down at.
No, I don't think so. I really don't. Other than the usual stigma that everybody has of, if you're going to therapy, that must mean something's wrong with you. You must have some serious issues. Get away from me.
Oh, you're mental ill.
Yeah, you're mental if you have to go to a therapist,
right.
and that's not even a Christian thing. That's a everybody thing.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right about that because I know in my family, man, if I start talking about going to therapy, because I've always felt I needed some therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's probably why I drink a little bit too much, but I'm getting ready to cut down on that. Okay,
well,
so
good luck with that.
Because I always call that my therapy. I said, hey man, I'm gonna go get this 12-pack. It's therapy time.
Well, I don't know why, but I remember when I was little, I had a cousin who he would always encourage everyone to drink more beer, and he would always give beer to the underage kids, me being one of them, and he would call it Jesus juice.
Man, don't say that, man. Sound like your cousin was Michael Jackson, giving Jesus juice to young kids. How old was he?
He's the first cousin out of my grandma. So he's
how much older was he?
He's actually closer to my. He's the same age as my mom's youngest sister.
Oh, okay. So he was older.
Yeah, he was.
So he could have went to jail.
Yeah.
Now, is he a Christian?
No.
Oh, okay. I see. I understand.
In fact, he kind of made fun of me for a while.
When you first started going to church?
Yeah.
Why? Because he wants you to hang out with him and drink that Jesus juice, huh?
Probably.
That is funny, man. That's a crazy. So all the little cousins in the family, he used to have y'all drinking beer and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I know my grandma would let me drink a beer every now and then, not get drunk, but just, take a sip. I always wondered, so maybe that's why I'm always thinking about drinking some beer. So therapy. So now what would happen if someone was like really psychologically damaged, right?
Uh-huh.
And they went to the preacher or the pastor, or they confessed in front of the, congregation or whatever. Is there a point where a pastor or a preacher would send them to a therapist?
You know
what I mean? Like, would refer. Because I've always had this, y'all know I'm cynical. I've always had this belief, preachers are like the police. And pastors, they're like the police. The police really don't want crime to go down.
Right.
Because if crime goes down, then police will be laid off. That's how I always say. Budgets will be cut. So I'm thinking, sometimes I'm thinking, man, do preachers and pastors really want to help people? Do they really want them to, how I can be cynical now.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that, and that's a really dark path you're going
down. That was like back last week talking about stereotypes and stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's wow.
No, you know that. You never heard that.
I mean, I've heard, pastors taking advantage, and honestly, from my experiences, I've had a really good experience with my pastors and with the other pastors from outside churches. Most of my experiences have been positive. So
See, that's a good thing, man. That's a great thing.
yeah,
Because some people, they don't have those. Well, most people do. And let me take that back. That's why we here, folks, with the young Christian, because I'm the cynical one. And, we get that balance, that yin and that yang. And he's explaining how a Christian would look at cynical stuff. That's why I always like talking to Dave Wilson, because he breaks my stuff down. When I come at him with something cynical, he's like, "Oh, hold up, man. Let me tell you my experience and stuff." So now back to this walk that you guys did for Good Friday, right? What do they call that day again?
We call that Good Friday.
I know, what do they call Easter again?
Some Christians don't like the word Easter. They like the word Resurrection Day.
Why is that?
Well, because it really is the day that Jesus resurrected from death. He resurrected 3 days after he had died in Good Friday, and then in Easter he resurrected from the dead, and that's what we say. And I guess Easter isn't a powerful enough word, so they decided to make the actual title of the day Resurrection Day.
Oh, so do you know where the word Easter came from? Because how did they even start calling it Easter? Why they didn't start off calling it Resurrection Day?
I don't know, and I really wish I did. And that's something.
That's a serious question, huh?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I was like, why am I looking for eggs? What the heck is going on?
I mean, the usual answer for the Easter eggs and the Easter bunny is the same thing for the Santa Clauses. It's the shopping district trying to get you to buy some.
The secular people created that for profit. For monetary reasons.
Exactly, like Valentine's Day, they use that for chocolate. So you buy chocolates and flowers. You have to do this to have a good Valentine's Day. It's same stuff.
Wow, that's sad, man, that they would monetize this or any particular holiday that has a reference back to Jesus. Isn't that sad in some sense?
I think it's sad if anybody does that for any holiday. But if
of course, but I'm saying especially the ones that go back to
specifically with the ones that
have a connection to the Lord,
and you're gonna make money off. But that's something that you even brought it up. The pastors are like police. You're gonna run into people like that, and that's actually a Christian scriptural thing. Beware of the sheep, of some sheep, because they're really wolves disguised as sheep, So I can't remember what verse that is, but I think that's a parable Jesus said.
So does that have a lot to do with, because I'm not trying to say the Christians are being cynical, liking that other word over the Easter word, but what I'm saying is, maybe I'm saying, why? Oh, well, you explained that, right? You said because that word sounds more resurrection, Jesus is coming back, right?
Yeah.
So now, like you said, you don't know the background of the word Easter.
Right.
Right. So how did you guys handle Easter when you was growing up?
The same.
Like everybody else, going to church every Sunday.
Yeah, every Sunday, you do that Sunday Mass. And, my family, I grew up in a house that we went to we went to church every Sunday. So, Easter was just another Sunday.
Well, that's the only day I ever went to church.
Yeah, and see, I know I had a friend in middle school who I only saw her 2 times a year at church, and it was Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent, and Easter Sunday, the ending of Lent. So it's funny, like, there's some people that there's certain days you have to go, and they go to those religiously. But the rest of the Sundays are like
they're not there.
Yeah,
just Easter. So when you went to church this past Sunday, it was crowded in there, huh?
Actually, this Easter, my I guess ritual for Easter, since I started going to my new church, is I attend their what they call a sunrise service. So at 6:00 we meet up at the local beach, and we do a few worship songs as the sun's coming up, because we get there a little bit before sunrise. And we do a few worship songs, and by the time we're done, the sun's up and shining, and the morning starts. And then I'll go and hang out with my family the rest of the time. They do have another service at the church, but I'm at my family by then.
Okay. So now back to this psychology part. Now, do you want to be a psychologist?
Well, I know I'm gonna want to practice psychology. I don't know if I want to go up to become a PhD with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So have you started formulating a concept of how you would interject your Christianity into your career?
That one has that one would be a little tricky sometimes because if you're working with a city, there's a lot of rules and a lot of
Oh, so is it
regulations.
like school, like God?
Yeah, yeah.
You got to
So,
separate God
uh-huh.
and
Yeah, when it comes, so when you're in the Christian field and you have psychology experiences, it's a little bit easier. You can throw in psychology, use your psychology knowledge whenever you want, basically, because it just helps you talk to people. It helps you work with people when they come at you and that they need help. But when you're in the psychology field, it can get into some muddy water when you start throwing your faith because
I think that's what happened to Mark Jackson. The coach of the Golden State Warriors.
um
Well, they said he made a reference because he's a preacher, a pastor.
right.
Which one name should I use, preacher or pastor?
I guess pastor would be.
Yeah, I'm gonna use pastor with you, and then if I see like Jesse Jackson or something want to jump like that, I'll use preacher. Okay. Well, anyway, the NBA basketball coach of the Golden State Warriors is considered a Christian, and he would take his teammates to games, and then after games when they was on the road, he would bring them to his church.
Right.
Now maybe some players complain. I don't know if any players complain, but I doubt if they complain because many of them said they enjoyed it. But maybe someone went behind the scenes and said something. But that's basically why he lost his job with the Golden State Warriors,
Wow.
because of his Christianity. Some people said he said something about the owner's son, who is supposedly gay, right? So another thing we're gonna get into right now before we get out of here. I don't mean to jump around, but I do that a lot. So because I just thought about that gay thing. What do you think about all that stuff that just went down in Indiana? The freedom rights. You heard about that?
Oh yeah, yeah, I did.
And then
hear
the
about
governor was getting ready to pass a bill, and he had to change it because a lot of businesses was going to boycott Indiana.
that. Right.
And so they said, oh, well, he tried to slip some of the businesses, and discrimination against gay people, and so. Do you believe people have the right to religious freedom?
Um, they have the right to religious freedom, but they don't have the right to discriminate. They don't have the right to say who, just because you're this, um, you can refuse. You can refuse them because
Right.
because that goes completely against the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. So if so by law, everyone should be allowed to go wherever they want.
But let me see. Well, what do you think about this? If people have the right to religious freedom, right?
Yeah.
But they do not have the right to discriminate.
Right.
Right. So now, most people who are against gays, they discriminate in their mind anyway. So almost like sometimes it's like, being a black person, you experience racism, but people really don't know because it's not overt.
Right.
It's like what they call that covert.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how would people? Well, I'm not. What I'm trying to say is, I've never understood why Christians. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but why Christians would judge people anyway. Like they feel like when they was passing this bill, they feel like they're doing something right in God's eyes.
Right.
But
right.
but yet is it something like amongst younger Christians that you guys are a little bit different from older Christians?
Yeah, that's definitely a situation. As us younger Christians, we see the intolerance, and we have experienced friends and families and stuff who have gotten the backlash of the intolerance. So we see the outcome and how it negatively affects people. So we come in, with a little bit of both sides, saying, it's not all that great to be doing this. We see where you're coming from, but no.
Now,
So
when do you guys ever try to tell the older Christians the world is changing, and maybe or explain it through biblical terms that hey, it really doesn't say this or that in the Bible? Because wouldn't that be like a real big debate?
yeah, that would be a huge debate, and in some ways, they um first off, I guess I gotta go back and it's not always um older people that are the intolerant ones, and it's not always you know um younger people being young people aren't the only um tolerant ones, because I do know of some older people
Are tolerant?
who are tolerant. I like praising my pastor because he does a lot of good, and he's 60, so he's not exactly young, and he is an extremely tolerant person. He understands that I was one of the worst sinners, so it's okay. So I can't really say I'm better than
Like many pastors, right? That's doesn't that make them relatable that they can?
yeah,
You
that
know,
they can. Yeah.
I've sinned, so I can help you not sin. Huh?
he's he's more of, I've sinned, so I can't judge you because I'm just as dirty as you are. There's as much as Jesus' blood on my hand as there is on yours, so I can't really say that I'm better. What I can say is that I've been there and it's not worth it.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's where he comes from.
You can say that.
Yeah.
So now, okay, so that I think that that'll be good to wrap it up this week. But I'm thinking a good topic we can get into next week is what I just said about you can explain more in deep detail the difference between older Christians and go into real detail. You know what I mean? Because I want to know, like, do they research different?
Right. Right.
Do they look at young Christians like regular old people look at young people? Y'all stupid. Y'all don't know what's going on. Like,
Right.
do older Christians really look at you guys like that? Like when you change your denomination from your parents that we talked about last week, and I don't know. I think you just said that they didn't know anything about the church you went to and all that type of stuff. But did they? I mean, did they look down at your denomination, man? And was it because they were older, not because it was different? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So I want to get into all that next week. That'll be one topic, and then we'll think of something else to talk about. So, all right, folks. Until next week, I'm Nerdy here with the young Christian, Dave Wilson. Peace.
Later on, guys.